France 24. Let's have a look now at the press with Dipti, who's joining us. Start with the US allies refusing to respond to Donald Trump's calls to help secure the Strait of Hormuz.
Yeah, that's right, Stuart. France, Germany, the UK, Japan, other allies are refusing to be dragged into the war against Iran at the risk of provoking the ire of Donald Trump. And the Financial Times on its front page here, headlining on allies rejecting a call for warships. The German Chancellor, they actually quote the German Chancellor just at the bottom of the front page here, as reminding Donald Trump that NATO is a defense alliance, not an intervention one. This after he made threats against NATO in retaliation for allies refusing to help him. As the Financial Times puts it here, it's Donald Trump's coalition of the unwilling U.S. allies have a right not to be sucked into a war they never wanted. The paper says from the Italian press, this is Il Fatto Quotidiano, a paper which here says that essentially accuses Donald Trump of being a pyromania, saying that he now needs help to extinguish a fire that he himself started. And the British Daily's independent opinion writer, Sean Grady, meanwhile, reacts to Donald Trump's threats against NATO, as he wryly says here that Donald Trump has gone from his crybaby phase, where he threw a tantrum if he didn't get his way, to now the surly teenager phase, where he makes dark threats when he doesn't get his way, Stuart.
Now to the Belgian Prime Minister. He's facing a backlash for suggesting that Europe should normalise relations with Russia to help secure cheaper energy.
Yeah, that's right. He made those comments in the wake of this energy crisis due to the war in Iran. Now, he made those comments on the weekend to L'Echo newspaper, a Belgian daily, calling for the normalization of relations with Moscow to re-establish cheap energy supplies. He called it common sense and said that in private, EU leaders actually agree with him. Politico saying that the Prime Minister's high support, not just in his native Dutch-speaking Flanders region, but also the French-speaking Wallonia part of Belgium, could explain his sort of confidence and willingness in making these very controversial and politically sensitive statements. In any case, Courrier International, a French weekly, a French website here, has sort of compiled all the reactions from the Belgian press in the wake of those comments, and they have been very quick to condemn his comments. This is one such paper here, which reminds us that Bart de Wever, the Prime Minister's five-party coalition, already was in hot water about 6 months ago over the question of recognizing the Palestinian state. The paper says now Belgian diplomacy looks more and more like a Mexican army. That's a French phrase meaning a group of barely organized people. While this Belgian paper here, this columnist here says that De Wever is seeking a seat at the peace table at the worst time, saying that by extending an olive branch to Moscow now at a time when energy prices are rising really makes Europe look bad and desperate as well.
Story we've not talked about, UK, a meningitis health crisis has already killed 2 people. There's panic on the front pages today.
That's right. You can see it here, Stuart. All the front pages are pretty much talking about this meningitis risk. Terror on campus for the Daily Mirror here, which I'll show you in a second. Unprecedented measures are being taken in Kent to contain the meningococcal infection before the Easter break. Now, the outbreak is believed to have spread at a nightclub 2 weeks ago. Since then, a student and a high school student, a college student and a high school student named Juliet, have both died. Juliet's face really on the front pages of many of the dailies today here. The Daily Star quoting her father as saying that they are beyond devastated after her death. She's also on the front of the Daily Telegraph, as well as the Daily Mail here today. Juliet, A-level student who lost her life in the wake of that. Meningitis is commonly treated with antibiotics. It's an inflammation of the brain and spinal cord, but if not treated, it can be deadly. And criticism is mounting against health authorities in Britain because it took them, they waited for the weekend essentially before informing the public about this outbreak, leading possibly to a larger spread of the disease. The Guardian describes COVID-era scenes of panic in the University of Kent as a cue for antibiotics, Stuart.
And finally from Dipty, a new letter going for auction. It details just how poor the famed French Impressionist artist Claude Monet was.
That's right. In 1875, Stuart, he was so poor he had to seek a loan from Gustave Manet, the brother of fellow artist Edouard Manet. In order to secure a loan of 1,000 francs, Gustave insisted on receiving the proceeds of 35 of Monet's paintings in payment. That would be valued at over €1 billion today. A letter signed by Claude Monet in 1985, which I'll show you just here, is actually going for sale. And in this letter, he details his trials and tribulations. His wife was sick, a cruel landlord who was threatening eviction. That letter is now on sale for about €100,000. Now, as part of that deal was also La Japonaise, one of Monet's most famous paintings, itself valued at over €100 million today. So proof that he was really the original poor, starving artist.
If only he could have sold them then.
Exactly.
Dipty, thanks a lot. Dipty Collerol with the papers on France 24.